Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patricia Patricio. Welcome to the webinar of the JoinHealth Spring Series on healthcare sales and marketing. For those who are joining us for the first time, these webinars are a collaborative initiative of the Health Cluster Portugal and the IT Health, herein represented by Miguel Amador. And our aim with these webinars is to promote knowledge in specific topics of interest in health and networking in an informal environment. So thank you very much for attending. I will now hand it over to Miguel Amador, who will present the agenda and the speakers for today's session. Miguel, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. So today we bring you a topic that is really relevant to startups and industry, because on healthcare we are used to think that because there is a need, you'll be managed to sell anything, and I always come with this example of the diabetes. Everyone knows that sugar is bad for you, but even though people still eat sugar things. So this is a little bit tricky on healthcare. You have the technology, you have the innovation, but now we need to sell it. Now we need to market it. And for this session today, we invited people that will cover these different topics. First, with us, we'll have David Magolé from How to Market, that will explain and share his experience on selling, on the sales process on the healthcare sector. Then we have with us Rui Magan from Pfizer, that will show how marketing can be done on the healthcare side. How can you communicate? How can you reach out to people? Taking in consideration that this is a highly regulated fields. And last but not the least, Jorge Oliveira from Sears Live. I could say that is a case study from a startup, but it's already a company working for many years selling in Portugal and Spain. So showcasing how they started since day one, selling, creating a sales team, creating a sales process to reach out, special on the social care, on selling their innovation, their products. So giving this more example of someone that starts from the bottom to in the sales process. So without further ado, let's move into David. That will be our first speaker. He's quite experienced on the healthcare space. He was a sales representative for Italo Farmaco. Then he moved to Inbiosis, a Spanish biotech. He was also the marketing manager for Spain and Portugal for Carestream, the leading medical imaging company for Kodak. And also then he moved to Fujifilm ultrasound company, Sonosite. So sales is in his backbone in different countries, and we'll bring here a little bit his experience, not only from those companies, but a lot on what he's been doing now in Lab to Market, a consultancy company that he founded that helps startups and researchers to move innovation technology in healthcare from the lab into the market. So David, the floor is yours. Thank you for being here with us.
Perfect, Miguel. Thank you very much, and Patricia, thank you for the introduction. Very thorough. That's going to help me skip a few slides. There's everyone can hear me. Everyone can see the presentation. Perfect. Okay, so I have about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, right? I should finish around 3 o'clock. Okay, so less than 30 minutes to speak about sales in healthcare. I'm going to go fast. I just hope everyone will be able to follow through. So first of all, thank you very much, Health Cluster Portugal and EIT Health, for inviting me for this webinar. And it's a great honor to be here with the rest of the panel here, my colleagues. And yeah, so let's get this started. So yeah, as very briefly, as Miguel said, I'm a biology graduate from the University of Nottingham. And then I developed 15-year-old, let's say, career in healthcare, mainly so in sales and marketing and strategy, as well, also working in biotech, medical device, and pharma. After this, I worked in communications agency as head of strategy, helping me get to know better other industries. I'm also a big fan of best practices where you can bring ideas from other industries and then apply in your own. I've been working also as a design thinking co-creation consultant for another company. And as Miguel said, founded Lab to Market to help researchers and startups launch their products into the market with the go-to-market strategies, sales and marketing perspective that sometimes lacks in these kinds of startups, because they come obviously from a very technical background. And I've also been working with Startup Portugal since 2020 on creating an innovation ecosystem with Cape Verde. And very briefly, what Lab to Market does, support and tech transfer, business consultancy, and access to funding as well. So what we will be talking about here today. So very important steps in not only just healthcare sales, but sales in general. How you should get to know your customer better. So from the customer journey, understanding also your clients' profiles, and even the stakeholders around the buying process eventually, if you want to put it that way. Then with that information, really clearly define what are your unique selling points from your product or service perspective. Nonetheless, you need to know your market very well, whether you're starting locally, nationwide, or if you want to expand and go to a different market. And then obviously you should always, in sales, you have to go the extra mile, but it's not just about finishing the sales deal, it's more than that. And at the end, I'll give you some more personal final recommendations. I always like to start with some sort of an interesting quote, and I tried to find out more about Damon Richards. All I know is that he's a business consultant in customer service, but I really enjoyed this quote, as in, your customer doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care, meaning you have to sort of speak the same language as your client. And again, your client could be someone different, someone it's not always the same person. And so it's not just about you doing your sales pitch, is making sure that you are really connecting to the other person, understanding their pain points, and trying to bring a solution to their pain points as well. And I mean, I think if I believe most of the audience are people with projects or entrepreneurs or startups themselves as well. So if you're here, is because you've created a solution to a problem that you've identified. And the next step after creating the solution, or sort of it should be going hand in hand, is to really understand your customer, to really understand what his let's say his path, his everyday life, and what are the pain points in his in the problem that you've also identified. And I like to normally insist in mapping out the customer journey, meaning what is the buying process, the usage of a solution similar to yours, or what he or she are using nowadays. And that is from accessing the solution or buying it, using it for the first time, using it on a patient eventually, making sure that whether he works or she works in a private or public hospital, does that make a difference? What happens after using the solution? Is there any follow-up? And mapping out every single step of the customer journey, I think, is very critical. It's key. So then, because you might be trying to bring a solution to a problem, but then you can deconstruct or divide that problem into smaller steps. And it's through this customer journey that you can then identify these smaller steps and help improve also the whole process into using your solution by identifying in detail the customer journey road. And that happens by observing, and it happens also by questioning through inquiries, questionnaires, etc., interviewing your potential customer and asking him what is the process nowadays and how you can improve on it and which are the pain points. And then again, those pain points can then become contact points where you and your brand can make a difference, and then at the same time also guarantee loyalty with that client. So again, by defining your customer journey, you should understand the processes and the workflow, again, from purchasing the solution, from accessing it, using it on a patient or themselves, And really understand each step of the way, who do they have to interact with? And that is the second point. Who are the stakeholders involved? Do they need to get permission from the hospital manager, from the CFO of the hospital, from the IT guy, the CIO, Chief Information Officer of the hospital, eventually a Chief Medical Officer, or the clinical director of a hospital or of a clinic? And I think understanding who is involved in the process is very important, because then, again, you can identify the pain points to be solved, again, both at macro or micro levels. When I mean macro is, okay, what is the big problem that you're trying to solve? But again, the micro levels for each one of them, because out of all of these stakeholders, their pain points can be different. The CFO of the hospital might say, your business model is not very easy for us to be able to either issue a contract or issue a purchasing order, because you are invoicing this way or that way. And those are things that you might not have thought of, but by relating with and asking the CFO, whoever signs the invoice or the purchasing order, then you can get some more feedback, and to make, again, the purchasing of your solution an easier process for everyone involved. Another point then, which I think is very important, is how you define your client's profile. Because again, it's not just about knowing that your client eventually is either the patient directly, a medical doctor who will be using your solution, and his demographics, his age, if he's tech savvy or not. I mean, you can be very basic on analyzing your client, but you can also be much more diligent and go further in that analysis of your client's profile. So understanding your customer is key. And sometimes, again, because the difference around the customer profiles and your target customer can be different from someone who's younger, older. Again, if he has to use some technical or digital platform, eventually, if that is your solution or not. If he or she is someone who has a lot of experience in clinical practice, if he or she are open to innovation and different solutions. So those are all different things that you need to really assess and understand what would be the best way to communicate with that sort of customer. And in marketing, one of the things we talk a lot about is a persona. What it used to have, and that was very basic, very conservative, but it was textbook marketing from about 10 to 15 years ago, is you had your target market demographic. So you had the gender, the age range, annual income, location, position, eventually, etc. How long he's been in the, or she have been in the job. And then recently, in the past few years, we've moved on into the persona, which is a more thorough description of the person who is buying from you. So understanding, obviously, the demographics, but again, where are they working? How long have they been working in that place? What have been their past experiences? What are their daily functions and responsibilities? What are their roles as well in the buying process? What goals do they have? Do they want to move up the career ladder? Are they just happy with doing research, further innovation, clinical trials or studies? Because again, this is the type of information that will help you understand if not only your product or solution is the right solution for that person, but also how you should sell to that person. What are the benefits for them as well? Again, what are the challenges and pain points? The preferred sources of information, where do they go and search online? Because then from a marketing strategy, or even digital advertising strategy, and I'm sure Rui Magana from Pfizer will talk about it later, if you know where they go and do their research, which websites they go on, what is their behavior online, you can also then have a further point of contact from a brand or product perspective in exactly those places where they are. And getting their personal background, their buying habits, hobbies, and free times. I think all of that information makes you understand your customer more, and then to provide information that is more relevant to them and more targeted to them as well. And that is really key. And in healthcare, you have something which is very, very critical. Sometimes your client is not someone who pays for your solution and is not someone who uses your solution. I mean, the client, and as we've seen in the past few years, and it's been traditionally seen this way, is your client is your medical doctor. And it's always been a sort of a business to business, B2B type of business model, where you'd sell to medical doctors because you want them to recommend your product or your drug or something else. And again, the user is not always the payer and is not always the buyer, and is not always the endorser. And in healthcare, you have all of these different stakeholders, and they need the right messaging, but they are all equally important in the purchasing process. So you need to understand the right messaging for each one of them and identify who is involved in the whole buying process. And I'll give you a clear example from even one of my experiences. So as Miguel said, I worked in the old Kodak Healthcare division called CareStream Health nowadays. And it was a very interesting experience because they went from analogical radiology, obviously coming from a photography company, to positioning themselves in digital radiography and healthcare IT. And again, if we had a problem to be sold to the medical imaging department, that was our main target, we had to understand the workflow of the patient. By the time that they walk into your emergency room or the hospital because they had an appointment, we need to understand which were the contact points again of entering into the hospital until the time that they had the appointment with the doctor, that they did the exam, they would leave the hospital, and then they would get the feedback outside of the hospital. Because a lot of the times you'd either get a call saying your X-ray exam was ready, or they'll send it by email, etc. So the experience of the patient is not only inside the hospital, the clinic, it can be also outside of it. And so this is, let's say, a very generic workflow, patient workflow. So the patient arrives, he has the ER physician requests, either for lab exams or X-ray, etc., diagnostic images. He gets the information. He goes back to the lobby where he talks to the administrative person, where they enter the information, etc., and then they'll get their results back. And here, just to state that, I mean, out of all of these people involved, almost all of them are important. So you get the administrative person who is at the reception of the emergency room or the radiology or medical imaging reception. And it's important that if you have eventually a healthcare IT software, in our case, we had what we call RIS, which is Radiology Information System, where you were able to write in the information of the customer and then link it to the doctor, so then you can get all the traction of the information of the exams. But we also had the other software, which was PACS, Picture Archiving Communication System. But again, if your RIS was easy to use and intuitive, this was something that would be beneficial to the administrative person who was at the reception. So she should be aware, or he should be aware, of how good your product or solution is. The radiographer, which is the person, is not the radiologist, but is the person, or she is the person who takes you into the radiology room and does the X-ray, positions yourself in the X-ray machine and clicks the button, basically. Then you have the radiologist who obviously sees the medical image, or even uses your PACS as a software, and needs to make sure that the information, the technical information, the quality of from even also a clinical perspective is good enough so they can do their own diagnosis of the situation. And then again, the risks, and eventually also, in our case, you needed to have the IT person to make sure that it was all easy to integrate, and a notion that exists a lot in healthcare IT, which is the interoperability of the solution to make sure it integrates with the existing IT systems of the hospital. And again, with risk again, and the reception people and the follow-up people and operation systems as well, of sending you the results and for a follow-up eventually for a second appointment. So in just one simple exam, the amount of people involved that would be linked to your solution is really huge, and we really have to map it out so we understand who are the stakeholders and to make sure we address the right messaging or sales arguments to each one of them. And this again comes to the other 2 points, which are you need to approach your client as a big account. So if your client is a hospital, or if your client is a clinic, obviously the dimension is differs, and you can have more people involved the bigger your hospital is. But again, think of it as a big account, because you have the doctor you probably speak with on an everyday basis, and to sell the technological aspects and how it's clinically proven that your product or solution is good. But think about talking to the CFO who will sign, to the hospital manager eventually, to if there's an innovation department and you have an innovative solution, how the hospital can benefit from your solution. Again, the personnel from the staff it's at the reception, more on an administrative perspective, to the nurses and other people who will support the doctor in the usage of your solution. These are all people that are linked to one big account. And to give you a clear view on this, we used to work with a CRM tool called Salesforce.com, and you used to have, obviously there's a lot of them nowadays, because we're talking about I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And with that CRM tool, you'd always identify the big accounts or the hospitals as an account, and then you had to list all the different positions of different people who would be linked to that account and obviously linked to your solution. So again, think of your client as a big account. And again, what does your solution do or improve for each one of them? Because obviously the CFO, the hospital manager, the innovation manager, the nurse, or the medical doctor are looking for different aspects of your solution. So make sure your solution brings a benefit to them. And that's something that for them individually makes sense and is important. When you've identified this, you can come up with the unique selling points of your product or solution, because you've understood the key selling arguments and benefits for these people. So that can help you not just compare your product to your competition, not just at the level of how technically it's better, or scientifically or clinically is a better solution. But for instance, you can say that your solution improves the patient workflow or makes the patient workflow more efficient, because he probably will have to skip one of those steps of that workflow. So makes access to the doctor and access to the exam much easier. This is something that it's sort of a secondary benefit, but it does give value to your solution as well. So think about mapping out the comparison of your solution versus competition, not just on the core benefits of your product for the main users of the product, but also from the secondary benefits that links to other stakeholders. And again, because this is really important when you go and present your solution, and this is something that happens a lot in healthcare, even though it's not public from an advertising perspective, because you're not really allowed to do this. But when you have comparison charts in let's say sales literature documents, PDFs, pamphlets, that you are presenting your product to your potential customer, a lot of the times you're comparing your product to someone else's. And then you have websites, I don't know if you've heard about Frost & Sullivan, KLAS, and they always come up with, in different areas in healthcare mainly, they come up with a lot of comparison charts on how products compare themselves in specific departments or clinical departments eventually. So here there's an example of population health management IT systems, and just look at how some of the metrics that they try to compare, which is the confidence of people using it, the culture, loyalty, operations, the value of the product itself. And they also normally tend to interview people who are using that on a daily basis. And again, it might be nurses, it might be medical doctors. So comparing your product, identifying the unique selling points, and then being able to compare your product will then bring even more value and give you a more solid defense, let's say, in the way you're selling your product as well. So with that, I'd like to repeat that how important it is for you to have the right message to your target audience, and then to adapt your communication to the setting where you are selling as well. Because let's not forget, you can be selling in a business-to-business model, but that doesn't mean you have to also communicate on a business-to-business model. You can communicate in a business-to-consumer model, because nowadays patients, they have so much access to information that they need to understand the brands, they need to understand the products and the companies selling those products. And sometimes they can be, thanks to Google, I'm not going to say Dr. Google, but they might be able to have even more information than the doctors themselves. I'm not saying that's always a positive thing, but already having the patients aware of your solution can also be positive, and to start creating a relationship with the company or with the product itself. And again, something which is very basic, and it's still like this nowadays. If you are trying to sell to a public hospital, private hospital, and your communication, not only communication as a company, but your communication as a salesperson on selling your product or solution, and again, having the right message is key in this sense as well, because a private hospital would like to normally speed up appointments, and I think I know that there might be some people here representing hospitals, public and private hospitals. I hope they're not going to take this wrongly, but private hospitals, they like to have, it's more about volume and having more appointments. So they would like to, it doesn't mean they have less quality time with the patient, but anything that will make the appointment more efficient and to increase more appointments and the slots and availability for appointments and seeing more patients is something very positive in the private setting. In the public setting, it's more about efficiency, but to spend even more time with the patient itself, to be able to, out of those 20-minute or 30-minute slot, making sure it's fully quality time and not having to deal with bureaucracy, and being able to really provide good quality care. So the type of message that you should present to one or other setting really makes a difference as well. I mean, I know this presentation will be shared in the future, and I know we don't have much more time left, but basically these are two types of communications that have changed a lot. Again, a pharma company called Tylenol a few years back in 1986 or in the 80s, it was all about which were the hospitals that trusted this drug, this product. So it was sort of a peer basis comparison. So if other hospitals trust, you should trust it as well. So more on a B2B type of communication and selling point. So if your colleagues trust it, then you should sell it as well. And nowadays, this was early 2000s, and I'm not going to show this video, but this is again the same brand, Tylenol, saying how family friendly their product is, and more focused on any types of family, regular American families here in this case, and more on a B2C perspective as well. So things do change, and it doesn't mean that you only have to have one type of communication on one type of selling point. You should really adapt depending on who you're talking to. And then some other points which are very important: know your markets. So obviously it's very important to understand where you're working, what is the context and the dynamics of your market, which are the governing bodies, who are you talking with? Do you have to go to the national side? If you, for instance, I worked 7 years in Spain, and if you are trying to enter the Spanish market or doing sales in Spain, it's very important that you communicate maybe at the regional level, what we call them autonomous communities or comunidades autónomas. And sometimes if you like to have a pilot at a regional level, It's easier to have a pilot in a regional level in Spain than it is to have one eventually nationwide. And to start with a smaller or less popular autonomous region, for instance, instead of Madrid or Catalonia, you could go to Extremadura or Galicia, even in the north, and then try to get a pilot there, and then with that convince other communities to then try your product in that sense. So understand the governing bodies, the public institutions that you have to deal with. Obviously, get the numbers of hospitals, patients, and doctors as well regarding your type of solution and the therapeutic areas where you're dealing with. The centers of excellence as well. You have a lot of hospitals or research centers. They are centers of excellence and they are references across the country. So you should try to link up to them as quickly as possible. Understand the cultural differences. Markets are different, countries are different, even regions within the same countries are different as well. So understand, whereas for instance, selling again in the south of Portugal or Spain, it's more related to relationship and creating a good relationship, whereas probably selling in Spain again with Catalonia or the Basque country, it's more about making sure you get the right data and not wasting time, and showing how in a very factual and pragmatic way your solution is going to improve the care that they offer. And obviously reimbursement strategies, each country and again also regions sometimes have different reimbursement strategies. So understand them, because when you get to speak to a higher level of decision makers, again, hospital managers, for instance, those are the type of questions you'll have to be able to answer. And if there's any type of available funding, because public hospitals might not be able to pay for your solution or for pilots, but eventually through EU funding, regional level funding, you can create a good economic, let's say, situation for these hospitals to test or to even purchase your solution as well. Again, very quickly, the marketing aspect you can try to do is a pestle analysis. I'll leave it here because then we'll waste too much time going into it. And one thing very important as well is check other sales angles, because you don't, especially if you're a startup, you don't have to go at it alone. You don't have to climb the mountain on your own and trying to get your product out there, because it takes time. It's pretty steep and it takes a while, but think about how you can get your product out there. If you have tenders, public tenders going on with public hospitals, think about partnerships you can have. Even us as a company, at the time with Carestream Health, again, we didn't have all the modalities in medical imaging. We had radiology rooms, but we didn't have TAC scanners or MRI, etc. So sometimes we would have to partner up with the big fish, with GE, Siemens, even Toshiba, etc., to be able to enter these tenders and to be competitive and to be able to sell, which would be more of our niche market, so to speak. Again, think about partnerships, think about distributors who can help you enter the market as well, especially markets where you don't have salespeople there with feet on the ground, or they might be more at a different region or trying to enter a new market as well. Societies and associations, that's very important as well. If you're dealing with a therapeutic area, you always normally have a society or a patient association dealing with that, where you can get a lot of information. But also, again, societies from the medical society or radiology society, again, any type of clinician society, and even specifically, again, a very quick example, when I used to work for a biotech company called Symbiosis, where we used to do gluten analysis in food. One of the ways for us to expand internationally, one of the things I decided to do was to get involved with all the celiac patient associations across Europe, and they would then open doors to us and telling which were the food companies, food industry companies that wanted to test the amount of gluten in their foods. The main food manufacturers as well would be willing to work with us, and eventually even research centers who were doing research projects there where we could partner up with. And again, insurance companies that they would be willing to partner up with you and to get the data, if you eventually have a digital solution, of the data that you can provide from your digital solution. And then finally, just go the extra mile. Customer service and being in sales is all about sort of pleasing the customer, understanding him, and really getting them out of trouble, and above all, making things easier for them, right? So make sure you follow up, make sure you measure. It's not about just selling the product. Talk to them, get feedback on how they're using it, if they like it, if there's any improvement, make them feel that they're special, because eventually if it's something innovative, that they're the first ones to use. So you want to make sure that you want to get their feedback, measure the impact, whether in their own surroundings or at the hospital surroundings, or even eventually the regional level if you have a big project going on. Provide training. Something that's very important in health IT, for instance, is, or even medical device as well, or digital health, is people tend to just provide training for 1 day or 2 days. A lot of the times people, it's not enough for them to start using a product or IT solution. You need to provide constant and regular training. Again, make sure you provide top-notch service and maintenance. Afterwards, if something doesn't work, you have to be there, and constant communication with the client from a sales guy perspective, but also from a company perspective. And Miguel, I know you're there already, but just last slide. Get in as, and I'm sorry about my colleagues here, but it's just really so much information. Get in as early as possible, do pilots, validate in the clinical setting, get people on board and really providing a solution with a proof of concepts, get KOLs and again, associations to endorse your solution. If you have the top medical doctor in that area and he's tested your solution and he endorses it and he validates it, that's great. Think about publishing papers with them as well, clinically and scientifically proven papers or white papers. You know, the clinical validation is very important in this healthcare context. Find the innovation champion within hospitals. Sometimes a lot of people are resistant to innovation, or because it's something new and they don't have time to use something new. So sometimes you have people who really like innovation, new solutions. So find that person who will help you to move around in the hospital setting. Show your solution firsthand. A lot of times what we used to do is workshops so people could test the products and solution, get the KOLs in that room and make sure they try and test it and give you feedback. Check current trends. Nowadays, everyone's talking about value-based healthcare, digital transformation. So if you have a solution for that, make sure that's the right messaging you're getting across. Think outside of the box. And again, have a nice image. In your documents, if you're providing a quotation or sales agreement, either packaging of your thing, or a design, be consistent, because again, that's going the extra mile, that's being nice. And even you might be a startup, but try to maintain that sort of consistency. And again, don't despair. The sales cycle, especially in healthcare, takes time. As you've seen, there's a lot of stakeholders involved. You might have the medical doctor who is in love and passionate about your solution, but then you have to convince the nurse, you have to convince the administrative person, the CFO, the hospital manager. So there's a lot of degrees of sales, let's say. So don't despair. Just make sure that once you get a sales in, make sure you advertise enough about it, and then you can also make sure you feed in eventually a different client. So don't give up, as Jack Ma says. I don't know where he is nowadays. I know he was sought after the Chinese government. I don't know if he's come back already, but I appreciate his thoughts sometimes. And he says, never give up. Today's hard. Tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. Thank you very much for your time. Sorry for running these 10 minutes late, but it was really a lot to share.
Thank you, David. It was really comprehensive, short MBA on sales on health. So let's see on practice. So we'll skip the questions for now. Probably in the end we have time with George. Some questions on sales will be interesting, because my question here is, how can the startup do all of these things? And have the resources for this, but then probably we can see how George replies to it, and then we can discuss with that. But more than just speaking about Sales Live, we're also coming here to showcase the challenges of actually selling to the healthcare system in the way that is probably more targeted social care, but nevertheless is not old people, let's say, that are buying is solution. So it means that it's faced the same pain that everyone in the healthcare industry, when your user is not your clients, your customer is not necessarily the one that perceives the value or sees the value. So in the end, I think it will be a nice experience shared here by let's not call it a startup, because George is already the Sears Live is already selling across different countries, so it's a fully developed company in that sense, but still is starting from the zero. That is always a nice story. So George, to you, thank you for being here with us today. Okay. You're still muted.
Thank you, Miguel.
Okay.
I believe everyone is already hearing me, correct? So just a little bit. I'm not sure you're seeing my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Miguel, for the introduction. In fact, we think we are just getting started, so we have a lot to do. But yeah, it's not only about the users itself. It's about how to find out to sell your product, and sometimes it's not the user that buys your product. So again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, EIT Health. Thank you, Health Cluster Portugal. I'm not sure I can put anything more on the table after these amazing contributions of David and Rui. However, I'm going to try to give you the Sears Life use case more in a practical experience than a theoretical one. But firstly, I would like to start by presenting you a little bit about Sears Life, just 1 minute. At Sears Life, we are putting together these two different worlds, old people and new technologies. And I would like to challenge everyone to a small exercise. I would like to ask you to close your eyes just for a few seconds. Please don't fall asleep. Thank you. And with the eyes closed, I want you to imagine older people trying to use new technologies. Now you can open your eyes. And please let me know if the images that came across your mind were something like this one, or even this one, or maybe something like the first selfie in the world. So the question we make was, why does this happen? Why does society still feels that older people are so far away from new technologies? And in fact, it's something that is it's normal, because these older people didn't grow up with the same technologies that we have in our days. But there's also another aspect that no one of us can get away from. It's the fact that as we grow old, our physical and cognitive abilities are no longer the same. So we have no longer the capability to follow up this fast evolution of new technologies. But the question we made in Sears Life is, does it always have to be this way? And if you don't mind, I want to show you some different images with this small movie.
Sou analfabeta, que eu nunca andei na escola, mas aprendi no computador. É sério, este computador mudou a minha vida, até a inteligência, porque fiquei melhor.
Very well. I think that this small movie resumes a little bit about what we do in Seals Life. And how did we achieve these results? We used to say that with a completely different approach. Instead of helping these old people to learn how to use new technologies, computers, tablets, smartphones, the internet, at Seals Life, we try to teach technology to adapt itself to people. However, I'm not here to talk about the product or the development process. I'm here to talk a little bit about sales. So let me introduce you to our first sales team. It all started this way with me and Fabio Macedo as co-founders. We were the first sales team of the company. And back then we were struggling to find our product market fit. So with a lot of questions in our mind, were we trying to sell hardware, software, both? What kind of features should we develop? What about, and then the most important aspects was about the usability, how we were going to try to put these older people that never used, sometimes never used a single smartphone or a phone itself, how could they start to use technology? And at the same time, we were trying to find who were the potential customers, what were the main problems that we should focus firstly to solve, and most important as well, how could we try to find someone to pay for our product. And talking a little bit about our customer, the customer is not, as Miguel said, the end user. We developed interactive systems to nursing homes, daycare, and activity centers. We have a lot of projects with municipalities, and with our most recent product, we are also working with home care services. So our first sales approach was basically printing some flyers and starting to visit these potential customers. And during these visits, we were pitching all the features, all the details of the product, starting with the hardware, trying to sell that there are important aspects, like the hardware doesn't use mouses or keyboards. We just focus the interaction on the natural user interfaces, like ergonomic adaptation, like large dimension screens. We were also pitching all the features and the software aspects of the product, telling these potential customers how important is to let these people with 2 single touches on the screen to connect with family and friends, but only focus on these flyers, okay? We were trying to tell them how important it is for these care professionals to have a tool to help them to do the physical and cognitive stimulation, give them the ability to access multimedia content like movies, news, music like we have in our days, but only focus on the features, the product. So I'm going to ask you if you can guess how many sales we got with this first approach. 0. And why? Why did we couldn't sell, only focusing on these flyers that were telling everything that the product could have? Why couldn't we sell when everyone was telling us that it was a great and awesome idea, when we have designed the features and the price model based on hundreds of interviews with customers? And the question is exactly that we were missing our why. We were trying to sell the product. We were not trying to sell the concept. And we found out that it was very difficult to sell a new product for those who are not looking for the product itself. We were not selling the mission, our beliefs. We were not selling the problems we were trying to solve. We're only focused on a solution for a problem that people and the customers didn't realize they have. And that's when we found out this amazing quote from Simon Sinek that tells that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. And Simon Sinek has this concept of golden circle that basically defines your mission, defines what you do. And in fact, when we start to pitch our mission, our why, everything starts to get easier. And our mission at Seals Life, we truly believe that everyone should feel included in the society, no matter his age or physical or cognitive conditions. We truly believe that technology must have a big role in social inclusion. instead of creating this big gap between people and the society. And we truly believe that the digital literacy can strongly contribute to help these people feel more included with autonomy and participation in our day-to-day life. And that's why we developed this amazing hardware and software and tools that, by the way, are beautifully designed, are very user-friendly, and help these people to use the system as well. So was that enough to start to sell? It was enough to give us to conquer some paid pilots like we have in Misericórdia del Caminho, that won a prize to implement our project in their facilities. It was not the first commercial sale, but it was a sale and helped us to get into the next stages. However, we were still struggling to have a consistent sale process, not only because we were trying to sell these interactions for those who don't interact, not only because we are trying to sell to people without any kind of digital literacy, and we found out that we need to go further and start to perform live demos of our products in the customer facilities. And during these demos, we have a lot of lessons learned, and was very funny. Back then was funny. Now, or now it's funny. Back then was a pain, because at the beginning we were afraid to show the product. We were because it could crash during the demo. And that would be the end of the world for us, we thought, but also because customers always wanted more and different features from the ones we already had and we were pitching. But we found out that our product had enough value and everyone was appreciating it. It was very important also during this process, not only to sell the features that we already have, but also sell the future, sell the roadmap, explaining how the product will evolve, how the product is a live product that will get a lot of updates and new features. And there's also another thing that we found out, that was a concept of quality demo. And what is a quality demo? Is a moment where you have the possibility to pitch, to present the product to your potential customer, but quality because you have not only the decision makers there, but also the key stakeholders. It's very important to have all the people that is going to work with your product to understand how can this product contribute to their, in our particular case, to their job. In this case, we were talking about gerontologists, physiotherapists, psychologists, a lot of care professionals that already do their amazing job in these care facilities, and we needed them included in this pitch so they could also give to the decision makers their opinion about the product. This quality demo concept is also important to have enough time to listen and to be listened to. And in our particular case, since we are pitching and presenting hardware, not only software, you needed a meeting room with conditions to set up your interactive system. And at this moment, you could ask how much important was to find this quality, as we call. And here you can have some numbers. You can see, for example, the accuracy. The accuracy in non-quality demos. You needed 100 demos to close more or less 8 deals. And when you can perform and schedule quality demos with the same 100 demos, you can close more than 31 deals. So it was really important to focus on finding these quality demos all over the process. The pricing model definition was also something that was very important all over the way. We started with an upfront, during a long period of time, we started with an upfront plus license model, basically because we sell an interactive system that is composed by hardware and also software, and we could not bear the cost of the hardware and simply rented it. But after a period of time, we found a solution that was really important. We established partnership with the renting entities, which provide a fixed renting solution for our customers. It's a fixed fee, monthly fee, and pay us the entire contract at the beginning of the contract. This was really a game-changing model that increased a lot our conversion rate with a comfortable solution either for us as for our customers. And today we have almost 90% of our contracts are established on a renting model. Our sales team is divided into two areas. We have the sales development representatives which main responsibilities are prospecting, finding new leads, qualifying these leads and nurturing these leads, basically checking if there's a match between what these potential customers are looking for and what we have to offer. And they are responsible also to schedule a large amount of quality demos. And there's another part of the team that are the account executives. Those are who are responsible to perform outstanding demos of our products. And after that, during the meeting with the customers, understand their needs, prepare and present the proposals. And of course, at the end of the day, what you want is to close more deals. We have a lot of sales key performance indicators. All over the time, we've already changed the way we measure our success. On a first approach, we were only measuring how many quality demos were we able to schedule and how many deals were we able to close on those quality demos. Today, we look more for the proposals, the number of proposals that are presented. This is a result of the capability of the team to perform more quality demos. And we also look for the accuracy rate, that is basically a percentage of how many opportunities I need to work to transform in a proposal. And on the account executive way, we have the number of deals and also an accuracy rate that tells us how many proposals I need to close a deal. We also look to the turnover all over the way, and how much I can increase the turnover per deal as long as we pass time. This is our sales pipeline. It's something that we look into it and update it on a weekly basis. And basically, this tells us the number of opportunities we have been working with, the number of demos that we can perform on those opportunities, the number of proposals that we can present, and the number of proposals that we can convert into closed deals already. It's very important to understand that our sales process looks into finding new customers, but we are not just looking to reach more and more customers. We are also looking to maintain the current customers. So we have a very important team that is our customer care team. It's basically an internal team of gerontologists and other care professionals that establish training plans with our customers, with the care professional teams of our customers. They do a lot of interactions with our community, with workshops, community events, and of course, all the customer support that is needed. Today, Swiss Life is in more than 350 customers in the Iberian market yet. We have more than 5,000 users that were not integrated, that were not able to use technology and now can feel more integrated in our society. There's more than 5,000 relatives and friends that are connected with their loved ones through their smartphones. And we are working along with more than 1,200 care professionals in our community. And that's it. It's a resume of our use case. And once again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jorge. A quick question to you. How many are you now at Swiss Life?
We are 28.
28, okay. No, I pick on this. I don't know if David, if you can join us, and Rui also, if you want to join, probably we can do a quick Q&A session or this of some questions probably I have for you on this challenge, because David showcased as a lot of this what you need to take care of. And for me, the question I had to David is like, how can you do it on a startup level in the beginning when you don't have a big team, a lot of money, and for me, it's quite impressive how you, with 28 people, you have all these things already organized, this flow organized, and so on. So probably I put the question to David on the first to start, and then probably
Let me
also
just say, Miguel, that we are
Yeah.
not 28 on the sales team. 28.
I know. No,
team.
that's what I'm saying. That's even more impressive.
The sales team is just 6 people. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it's a little bit on this question to David. How should you prioritize or should focus first when
I mean, and you're right. It seems a little bit overwhelming when you see all those checklists, I believe, that I mentioned in my presentation, and obviously that comes from my experience of working in. Well, the smallest company at the time was the biotech company. There weren't that many of us, but we were part of a larger group. But yeah, the other experience was mainly multinational companies. But I think I'm also an entrepreneur myself in the sense that I launched Lab to Market, and I think it's more about, and this is from what I can see from George's presentation, is you have to, you don't have to be everything, because we're not superhuman or supermen or superwomen, but it's more about being how would you say in English, methodological. You have to be more like you have to make sure you know which are the main steps and what you can do it yourself, but at least make sure that some things that you do now, even if you're a sole founder and you're going at it on your own, some things need to be in place now to provide the structure that you'll need in the future. And again, I think George is very organized, and if he's thought about tracking the sales and using his CRM tool or whatever he's using at the moment, but he knows he's done the due diligence on knowing his funnel, right? How is it improving? How many presentations we've done? How many we've closed? What's the conversion rate, etc. That is the sort of organization that you should try and implement from the start. And again, it doesn't matter if you are on your own or if you have a team of 200. But if you send a proposal to a client of yours, and if you don't follow up, or if you sell the product and you don't follow up afterwards, it's about your company cultural values, if you want to put it that way, or values of making sure that your client is as important as anyone else. And again, I'm sorry to bring up again that same person, but Jack Ma again from Alibaba. One of the things that he said in a book of his that I've read, which is I think is very important, his organogram in his company, instead of having the CEO at the top and everyone else being product managers, hierarchy as normal direct managers, the person he has at the top of the tree, let's say, is the customer. So the customer is there, and everyone else comes down. The first people have the first contact point with the customer, and at the bottom you have the CEO. So it's the other way around. And so it doesn't matter if you're 1 or if you're 200. The importance that you need to give your client is critical. So obviously you're not going to be able to tick the boxes of everything, but make sure you're consistent enough, because that's what's going to make also clients buy from you, because at the time they might not be able to have the money, but if you've had a good approach, and if you've sort of behaved well, and you've shown follow through, and did you care, and then you've called them up later on, the day that he has money, he will appreciate that sort of behavior, and he'll come back to you.
So we have a couple of questions here in the Q&A, and probably following up on this topic that David was approaching. One of the questions is probably for Jorge about the KPIs to determine the quality of the demos in his case, I would say. So about measuring the conversion rates and the impacts of your actions. How did you measure the quality of your demos?
It's in fact a great question. At the beginning, we were basically trying to find if the demo itself had everything, like the key decision makers, all the stakeholders, if the account executive had enough time to present all the features of the product, discuss the prices, present the proposal. This was how we defined the quality demo. But now we are no longer focusing on defining if a demo is is defined as a quality demo or not. We are more focused on proposals. If a lead reaches the proposal moment, it's a result of a good job of the sales development representative. So the main objective of the first part of the team is to conduct a lead until they reach the moment where the account executive has everything he needs to present the proposal. And that's how we measure quality today.
Okay, thank you.
We also have here another comment that actually was also one of my next questions is especially working a lot with startups, we always have this kind of like, you need to go global, you need to sell to the walls. And then we see examples like Facebook, or let's just pick Instagram, that probably everyone has, but probably none of the people that work in Instagram actually are outside of the US. Is this something possible in healthcare? Can you go global without going local? And probably just bring this question first to Rui, in the sense that you are an international company, and how much of the marketing that is done in Portugal is defined at the international level? How much relies on your ground expertise and decisions on what you should do?
Well, I would say that this is always changing, and we are constantly adapting to the environment. And multinational companies in the recent past, I know that have moved some of their decision centers to other geographies. I would say that we adopt a local model in Portugal, and in this case in the pharmaceutical industry. We have some standards from abroad, from international markets, but who decides what to do in our country is this is belongs to the market. So we own the customers in brackets. We own the customers, or we own the knowledge about our customers. So we are the ones that can define this in Portugal. Of course, some of the scientific content that I've mentioned in my presentation, this comes from outside, not only from our internal teams, but also from reputed medicine journals and magazines. And what we do is adequate the kind of content and the format to the customers that we know. And I can add that we also are in a kind of startup process when we deliver this content. I've heard the presentation from George. I can also highlight the learning process that he went to, the test and experiment, and going along and try to improve their methodology. And we also do this in specifically when it comes to digital. We always do this under, of course, the certain rules, but we always try to do the same process. And to answer David also, we cannot say we are entrepreneurs in the common sense of the term, but we are kind of internal entrepreneurs, because we need to use creativity internally to disrupt our processes.
Probably going into the opposite direction. So how you go from the international level to the local level, as Rui mentioned. I know that both you, David, and George, you are experts on going to Spain, selling things in Spain. And the things we came across most of the times at the IT Health is that you often startups succeed in their local markets. They know the way, and then when they try to go abroad, they need to start from zero. So it's again going market by market. You can be a global company, but you need to have local sales and local marketing. How much this difference has been for you on experience, Jorge? I don't know if you want to start, because I know that you are moving and increasing sales in Spain, right? How challenging was to replicate what you had here in Spain?
Yes. Let me just correct Miguel, because we are not yet experts
Not yet.
in internationalization.
Okay.
But we already reached some customers in Spain, and we are trying to scale our operations, our sales operations, basically with two main objectives. We are trying to reach the B2C market, so reaching the consumer market, because we are only for now we are only selling in a B2B basis. And we have another big question in our team is, how can we reach 10 times more customers without having a team with 10 times more people? And we are trying to establish some partnerships with in this case, companies that already have distribution channels established, that already have some commercial teams established. We are doing it in Portugal, but also trying to do it in Spain. And this is our approach for now. I believe that the main concerns is to understand if they have the same kind of processes implemented, if they understand your product as well, if the type of customers they are reaching are the type of customers you want, and you need to retrain your team to focus more on quality, on training their team as well. And those are the challenges we are facing for now.
David, some notes on this, and then we need to close this.
Yes, I mean, I think this would be a different whole new webinar talking about how to go global and scale a company. But I think you need to be very open from the start if you want to take your product globally or not. And if you come from a small country like Portugal, or even in Central Europe, etc., you have to reach across the border in order to have more sales and have more dimension. That's almost inevitable. We're lucky enough, at least, that in Portugal people speak English, so a lot of the times the solutions that we create and provide are already at least in two languages, I would say. So I think obviously getting to know the different markets where you have eventually more or less competition, the time to market and market entry barriers. This is something you should be able to analyze as well. And again, going slowly. And nowadays we have so many tools. I would say these are tools that can help us enter new markets. You have, well, thanks to EIT Health, you have, I don't know how many acceleration programs across Europe that even can help you enter a different market and partner up with eventually an incubator, or what do you call a catalyzer, that can provide you information about the local market and already see if there might be a potential market fit of your product or solution to the local market. And even partner up as well with associations like Health Cluster Portugal, who can give you a little overview of the market and what you would need to do to enter that sort of market. So you have the tools, you have the connection, the networking that is also inevitable, and go slowly. Start by, again, as if you were starting in your own market, a pilot, getting information, getting the spreading the word across, and linking up with the local innovation players and healthcare players that can help you not only give you more information about the market, but even settling in, connecting you to the right people. And it can be also from a clinician perspective, etc., to enter those markets. But I think you need to focus in different markets, not just year round.
Okay, thank you. Our time for today is over, so thank you for all to being here. Patricia, I don't know if you want to leave some closing words also.
Yes, I will just end, and before we close this webinar, just a quick note to reiterate the acknowledgements to the speakers. So thank you, David, thank you, Rui, thank you, George, for this very interesting presentation. So David also spared me some words about the role of both EIT Health and the Health Cluster Portugal in this kind of activities and actions. So we are here, we're available. You have our contacts. So thank you, the attendees of this webinar. And I invite you to check the upcoming webinars of this series at healthportugal.com or by using this QR code on the screen. And you may also follow us through the Health Cluster Portugal's LinkedIn or Twitter account. So next week we'll have a webinar dedicated to also a very trendy topic in health, value-based healthcare. So stay tuned and hope you can join us and have a nice week. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.